Some betrayals come quietly. Mine came with a buzz in my pocket and a 6-word message that gutted me clean. I didn't marry a dying man. My name is Daniel Riker. I'm 41st Senior Vice President of Strategy at Alliant Tech, a company I helped scale from a warehouse with 4 desks to a public beast dancing with Fortune 5s. I was never the loudest guy in the room, but I was the one people watched when it mattered. I built my name on precision, in decisions, in discipline, in who I trusted, including her. 3 weeks before that text shattered what was left of my ribs, I was sitting in a sterile exam room while some oncologist I'd never met told me I had stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. His voice was steady. Mine wasn't. I remember looking down at my hands like they didn't belong to me, like the body I'd trusted my whole life had filed for divorce. I drove home that night, rehearsing how I'd tell her. She met me at the door, glass of red wine in one hand, phone in the other. Her smile faltered when she saw my face. I told her straight. It's cancer. She didn't cry, stood there, said, "Oh," and walked to the sink like I'd told her I forgot milk. That was the moment I felt it. Not fear of dying, but the hollow snap of being alone while breathing. Next few days, I started treatment prep. Blood work, paperwork, insurance calls. She was there, but silent. She stopped touching me, stopped asking questions, stopped looking me in the eye. And when she did, there was something behind it. Not grief, not fear, disgust. The night before my first round of chemo, I sat on the bed's edge. I reached for her hand. She pulled it back like I was contagious. I didn't sleep. Next morning, she was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just an echo and her wedding ring on the counter. I blinked, telling myself she'd run an errand, but I knew. My phone buzzed. One message: I didn't marry a dying man. No follow-up, no apology. I opened our banking app. Joint account, 0. Savings, gone. She wiped it clean and stashed it in her name. The emergency fund we built for 10 years became her escape plan. I sat there, fists clenched, chemo bag hanging off my arm. You don't prepare for this pain. Not the physical kind. You can medicate that. I'm talking about the kind that hollows you out and leaves a shell smiling in the mirror. I called her, blocked, tried her mom, blocked, her best friend, nothing. Like I never existed. Like the last decade was something she could delete once it got inconvenient. My nurse saw me shaking, thought it was the drugs. I didn't correct her. By end of day, I had puked 3 times and cried once. Not because of the cancer, but because I realized I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning who I thought she was. That version, the one who held my face when I landed my promotion, who danced barefoot in our kitchen when I closed my first big deal. She never existed. With what energy I had left, I texted her one word: bye. No begging, no theatrics, a period. She used to say I was her anchor, her home, that no matter what happened, we were a team. I believed that. I built around it. The house, the career, the talks about kids, all of it rested on the idea that when storms came, we'd hold. But it wasn't a storm. It was a forecast. And she left before the rain fell. And you never forget when love turns into proof you should have known better. The part that killed me wasn't that she left. It was that she left like it was easy. I replayed our wedding night in my head, the vows, the music, the way she looked at me like I was the only man in the world. And now I was a ghost she couldn't even bother to say goodbye to. It wasn't just abandonment, it was erasure. She deleted me. I remembered everything. But here's the thing about hitting bottom. You stop fearing the fall. And what she didn't know was that something darker than cancer had started growing in me. Not hate, not revenge. Clarity. She thought chemo would be the hardest part. She was wrong. Chemo isn't just poison. It's a slow grind of humiliation. You sit in a chair that smells like bleach and sadness while they drip poison into your veins and call it hope. Day 1 knocked me sideways. By day 3, I was learning to walk without looking drunk. By week 2, I'd lost 8 pounds, a chunk of hair, and any illusion this wouldn't be war. And I was fighting it alone. No one sat beside me, no hand to hold, no voice saying, "You've got this." She was gone. Took the money, the light, the air. All I had left was the beep of machines and a plastic cup of ice chips. The worst part wasn't the sickness. It was the time. Time to think. Time to remember. Our honeymoon in Santorini. That night we slow danced under a sky so wide it felt like falling into forever. The way she'd trace my jaw when I talked about work like it mattered. A note she once left. "We did it, Mr. VP." Now the only thing on my windshield was dried leaves and unpaid parking tickets. I looked at the chair next to mine. Empty. Again. They pushed it aside to make room for the IV pole, like they already knew no one was coming. The few people who reached out stopped after week 1. My phone went silent. No one knew what, so they said nothing. I became an uncomfortable footnote, a ghost in real time, except for one guy, Jake. We hadn't spoken in 5 years, not since he moved to Chicago. Out of nowhere, he called, said he heard through the grapevine, didn't say much else, just, "Need anything?" I didn't even know what to ask for. He sent a care package, books, protein powder, wool socks, and a note. "You're not dead yet. Don't act like it." It hit harder than any sermon. The nurses were the only ones who looked me in the eye. They joked and trashed the coffee. Real human shit. And I realized something. The only people showing up were the ones paid to, or the ones who owed me nothing. Clarity doesn't come with lightning. It comes silently. I started keeping count of the things I lost. Not for pain, for precision, my appetite, my patience, my eyebrows. And somewhere around infusion 6, my fear. Fear of what? Of being alone? There? Of dying? Starting to care less? Of losing everything? Already happened. But I also started counting what I still had. I could breathe, think, choose. If anything was going to survive, it would be my will. Non-negotiable. I remembered when she asked me what scared me most. I said, "Wasting my life on the wrong people." She laughed. "Then you better hope I'm right." She thought that was charming. I think it was prophecy. Bitterness started to rot the edges of my mind. I wanted to rage at her, at life, at my body for turning traitor. I wanted to send her a message so cruel it would echo for years. I wrote one, deleted it by morning. Instead, I opened a blank notebook and started writing. Not poems, not letters, just facts. Day by day. What I felt, what I saw, who showed up, who didn't, what she took, what she said. I wasn't journaling for peace, I was documenting for war. I stopped seeing myself as a patient. I started seeing myself as a witness. Some days I didn't write more than a sentence. Others, I filled 3 pages, not for healing, for memory, for when I'd need to remember who I became. I wasn't letting this story get rewritten, not by her, not time, not me. Each chemo round stripped me, physically, mentally. But there was something underneath the layers of fatigue and ache, something raw and sharp. Resentment became resolve. Pity turned into pride. This wasn't about beating cancer. This was about not letting her be the last chapter. When I tossed the last photo of us, I didn't feel triumph. I felt clean. And there's a difference. I stared at the empty closet, her side, bare hangers, a lone sandal like an insult. You don't forget the silence of a house that's been hollowed out. You don't forget how grief clings to everything. It wasn't abandonment, it was erasure. Now I was a ghost she didn't bother to say goodbye to. Some men break, others burn, and some start sharpening. One night, after another round that left me vomiting until sunrise, I looked in the mirror and saw someone I didn't recognize. Gaunt, pale, but his eyes were locked in, focused, scarier than the disease. Because deep down, I knew. The man she left, the one she called weak, broken, dying, he was gone. Someone else was waking up. She thought she left a dying man. But something was coming back to life. Recovery doesn't come with a parade. It comes in quiet, uneven steps. First, I could stand without the room spinning. Then, I could make it to the kitchen without gasping. One morning, I managed to finish a full breakfast. Eggs, toast, black coffee, and didn't throw it up. That's when I knew the worst had passed. It didn't mean I was better, but I was no longer drowning. My weight started to climb, slowly. My skin looked less like paper. The fatigue didn't own me anymore. It just visited. I stopped looking like a patient, started looking like a man again. But not the man she remembered. This one didn't beg. I opened a new bank account, cut off every shared credit card, closed joint lines, froze the remaining ones. I called in a favor from an old colleague who had a quiet but powerful presence in financial compliance. We pulled the statements, tracked every dollar she moved, every transaction. Every step she took out of our shared life left a paper trail. Then I booked a legal consult, not for divorce. That could wait. This was about leverage. The attorney I met was sharp, efficient, and didn't ask dumb questions. I gave her the facts, the timeline, the evidence. She nodded slowly, tapping a pen against her notepad, like she was already building the scaffolding for a different kind of justice. "We can do something with this," she said. That night, I slept 8 full hours for the first time in months. While my body healed, my mind sharpened. I kept journaling, but it changed, no longer just feelings. Now it was records, logs, names, dates, screenshots. I treated it like evidence, because that's what it was, not just of what she did, but of who I had become while she wasn't watching. There's something sacred about rebuilding in silence. No announcement, no pity party, just motion. I spent most of my afternoons working on a side project she used to mock, a niche software tool for supply chain diagnostics. She once laughed and called it your little spreadsheet hobby. Now it was code, now it was structure, now it had early testers and interest. I launched a minimal version on a free platform, offered a beta to a closed group. The feedback came fast, faster than I expected. Real interest, real need, it worked. I tightened the branding, filed the LLC, registered the domain, every detail, clean, quiet, controlled. No social media posts, no brags, no sign that anything was happening at all, which was exactly the point. Because you don't get even by being loud. You get even by building something they can't touch, and then never needing them to see it. I kept her file updated daily, not out of spite, out of clarity. She took the money, she made it clean, cold, legal. So I responded in kind. Cold, clean, legal. I never once messaged her, didn't try to reach out, didn't stalk her socials. I already knew what I needed to know. She was living with someone else, renting a condo in a city we once visited on a weekend trip and swore we'd never live in. Everything about her choices screamed panic, rebound, collapse. I didn't care, not really. Because for the first time in years, I was fully mine. I'd forgotten what it felt like to think clearly, the kind of clarity that doesn't come from answers, but from the discipline of surviving your own doubt. I'd walk for hours around the block, earbuds in, pretending to listen to podcasts, but really just cataloging every decision I'd made that led me here. Not to wallow, to understand. I started batch cooking meals again, measured macros, hit the gym at off hours to avoid anyone who might recognize me. At first, I could barely lift the bar, but by week 4, the shakes stopped, my form returned, the strength followed. The business? It started gaining traction in weird corners of the internet, forums, Slack groups. Cold emails led to discovery calls. I stayed anonymous as long as I could, built under an alias, filed the paperwork through a shell. There's a power in anonymity, in watching your name grow without your face attached to it. I wasn't just healing, I was rebuilding something I never had in the first place, full autonomy. One night, I sat on my balcony with a whiskey I could finally taste again and looked through my own notes, my own code base, my own records, all the fragments of my so-called broken life arranged neatly, weaponized, not for destruction, for protection, for power. She took everything, so I built something better, in silence. She wasn't watching. That was her first mistake. The money hit my account at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. I sat there staring at the notification like it was some kind of mirage. It wasn't massive, just the first real check from my software startup. But it was clean, earned, mine, no split, no compromise. I leaned back in my chair and laughed, not a sarcastic laugh, not the bitter kind I'd been spitting out for months. This one was real. I didn't post about it, didn't even screenshot it. That wasn't the game I was playing. I stayed dark. No updates, no breadcrumbs, no trail. My name was still off the paperwork publicly. The LLC ran through a trust I created under a different alias. The website listed a generic contact form. Everything pointed away from me. The power wasn't just in the success. It was in the silence. I'd built something she couldn't find, couldn't touch, couldn't sabotage, and I wasn't done yet. That night, I forwarded the invoice to my accountant and closed the laptop. Went for a walk, crisp air, headphones in, hands in jacket pockets. I passed a couple arguing on the sidewalk, something stupid about a grocery list. And I smiled, because I wasn't in it anymore. Not the chaos, not the need, not the desperation for someone to stay. When I got home, I had a voicemail from an old friend, Paul. He's a contracts attorney, used to be one of my late-night whiskey and war stories guys back before everyone got too busy or too broken. Heard what happened, he said. If you want help tracing those transfers, I've got some tools. She didn't even know my hand was in the game. A week later, I ran into someone who used to be in our circle, Rachel. We hadn't talked in a year. She looked surprised to see me, alive, healthy, standing tall. She hesitated, then said, "Have you heard about Mia?" I shrugged. She lost her job 2 months ago, got evicted last week. She's living with some guy, but it's bad, like screaming at each other in the street bad. I didn't say a word, just nodded, but I smiled. Not because I wanted her to suffer, not because I needed her to fail. I smiled because for the first time in months, I didn't feel powerless. I wasn't fantasizing about revenge anymore. I didn't need her to bleed. I needed her to know, one day, quietly, painfully, that I didn't die. I didn't collapse. I didn't vanish. I evolved. And I was about to make sure she knew it. Not in a headline, not with a confrontation, but with paperwork, precision, leverage. We filed the first motion the following week. Clean, strategic, impossible to ignore. Asset recovery based on breach of fiduciary duty, concealed transfers, and civil conversion. My name wasn't even on the letterhead, just the trust, the claim, and the receipts. I sat across from Paul at his kitchen table while he walked me through the next steps. "She's going to be confused," he said, then angry, then desperate. I sipped my coffee. "Good." He laughed. "You're colder than you used to be." "I'm not cold," I said. "I'm done bleeding." Later that night, I updated my case file, added the new filings, the timestamps, the signed declaration. Every piece slotted in like a blade on a whetstone. There's a strange kind of power in watching everything you were robbed of come back to you, not in the same form, but in a way that's cleaner, tighter, weaponized. I wasn't chasing closure, I was constructing consequence. I didn't care if she cried, I didn't care if she called. The game had already changed, and she hadn't even realized she was still playing. That's the difference between reaction and strategy. She ran. I rebuilt. And now the walls were starting to close in, slowly, quietly, deliberately. She thought it was over, thought the damage was permanent, thought she buried the past. But the thing about ashes? They don't stay buried. She didn't know it yet, but the reckoning was already in motion. The envelope was certified, no signature required, just impact. She got it on a Thursday. I know that because the tracking number hit delivered at 10:42 a.m., and by 11:06, my phone lit up with an unknown number. I didn't answer. I watched it ring, 3 times, then silence. She had read the demand letter by then. Frozen assets, civil conversion claims, financial misconduct backed by forensic evidence and clean legal language. No dramatics, just fact. She didn't expect it. That was clear. She'd assumed I'd vanish, curl up, fade away. She thought my silence was surrender. What she didn't understand was that I wasn't plotting revenge. I was preparing justice. Her new partner, the guy she moved in with 3 weeks after leaving me, found out around the same time. Don't ask me how I know. People talk. Screenshots circulate. Truth doesn't stay buried long in the group chats she used to dominate. Turns out, he didn't like being lied to. Didn't like realizing he was living off stolen money. He packed a bag that same weekend. Left her with an overdue lease, 2 disconnected utilities, and a face she couldn't show in public without someone whispering behind their hand. I didn't post, didn't leak anything. I didn't need to. Power isn't loud. She tried again on Sunday. New number, different area code, straight to voicemail, no message, just silence. The more she tried, the quieter I became. Monday morning, she emailed. Subject line, "Please." It sat unread for 2 days. When I opened it, it was exactly what I expected. A long string of half apologies, pseudo-justifications, and vague emotional appeals. She asked to meet. We should talk. As if there was something left to discuss. There wasn't. I didn't reply. I added the email to the case folder, every word archived, every excuse printed and filed. Thursday afternoon, she tried a new number again. I answered. Daniel? Her voice cracked. The kind of tremble you use when you're not sure if you're still the protagonist. I need to talk to you, just face to face. I let the silence hang so long it hurt. Then I said it, calm, clear, unshakable. Talk to my attorney. Click. I didn't slam the phone, didn't throw anything. I went back to my kitchen, poured a glass of water, and watched the wind rattle the blinds. That was it. No explosion, no satisfaction, just peace. I used to think closure came with a conversation, or revenge, or a public reckoning. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the shift, the tectonic click in my chest when I realized I no longer needed anything from her. Not understanding, not remorse, not closure. She took everything, then she tried to vanish. But I didn't chase. I documented, I organized, I waited. Now she was the one spinning, out of control, out of money, out of options. Her reputation, gone. The people who once clung to her Instagram feed like it was scripture were now deleting comments, unfollowing quietly. She didn't fall from grace. She evaporated, and I said nothing. I could have gloated, could have made a spectacle, could have replied to her email with the receipts. But I didn't. That's not power. That's insecurity in a costume. Power is when you don't need to explain why they lost you. They just feel it. I remember standing in our old apartment once, watching her rehearse lines in the mirror, some work presentation she wanted to nail. She was magnetic then, confident, charming. She could convince anyone of anything. Except now, the one person who knew all her tells, all her tones, all her angles, didn't care. And that killed her more than the lawsuit. I kept everything moving through Paul, formal, legal, clean. The system she thought I'd never weaponize, because I wasn't the type, had become my exact arena. She lost, quietly, completely. I never raised my voice. I never raised my hand, just my standard. She wanted a conversation. I gave her a consequence. She thought she was walking away from a dying man, but I wasn't dying. I was upgrading. She tried to come back, and I didn't slam the door. I sealed it. She's out. I'm whole. And this time, he doesn't want her back. He wants the final word. After I hung up, I walked out onto my balcony. The sun was setting, casting this copper light over the buildings, the kind of golden hour people post about but never actually sit in. I stood there with nothing but the wind, the city below, and a heartbeat that finally felt like mine again. No part of me missed her, not even the memory of her. What I missed, for a long time, was the man I used to be before her absence taught me silence, before survival taught me structure. Now, that man wasn't coming back. Someone better had taken his place. The blood tests came back clean. No traces, no flags. Just a quiet confirmation that I was officially in remission. I walked out of the clinic without calling anyone. No celebration, no post, just breathe, deep, steady, my own. These days I sleep through the night. I eat well. I train. The business is scaling faster than I expected. Not viral, just solid, predictable, profitable, like I rebuilt my life with a scalpel instead of a hammer. And I did it alone. Not lonely. Alone. There's a difference. I used to crave connection like oxygen. Now, I choose it like a weapon. Carefully, with clarity. I don't chase, I don't cling. I watch, I listen. And if someone stays, it's because they see me clearly. Not because I need them to. A few weeks ago, I met someone. She didn't try to save me. Didn't try to read me like a puzzle or fix me like a project. She just stood there, her own force of nature, confident, grounded, whole. And for the first time, I didn't shrink. I didn't bend. I didn't try to become whatever would make her stay. I just showed up, as me. That was enough. There's something unshakable about solitude earned through fire. You stop apologizing for the silence. You start loving the stillness. It becomes your proof. Not that you survived, but that you transformed. I walk different now, slower, straight. Like I'm no longer asking the world for space to exist. I take it. I own it. That's the thing about becoming sovereign. No one crowns you. You rise alone. Yesterday I got an email from Mia, subject line, "Hi." Inside, a paragraph about how she's sorry, how she's been thinking, how maybe we could catch up. No pressure. I read it once, then again. Then I closed the laptop. Didn't delete it. didn't reply, just stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the front door into a world that finally felt like mine. She left a man dying. Now she'll spend her life watching me live.